We want to thank today's sponsor, Age Up. People are living longer than ever, but few can actually afford it. With small dollar payments now, Age Up provides guaranteed monthly income for life beginning at the selected target payout age between 91 and 100. Head to age-up.com/That Annuity Show. That's age-up.com/That Annuity Show to get started and see how Age Up can help you guarantee supplemental income for yourself or for a loved one living past the ripe age of 90.
Welcome to That Annuity Show, the podcast that will make you an expert in explaining annuities to your clients. Give us 30 minutes each week and we'll shave hours from your client presentations. Now, here's your host, Paul Tyler.
Hi, this is Paul Tyler, and welcome to another episode of That Annuity Show. And with me is one co-host. Two are out of action. Maybe one will make a surprise appearance during the middle of recording, Mark Fitzgerald. But Will Marcroft, our head of chief compliance, could not be here today. So I will be playing three roles instead of one. See what I can do, Ramsey. You can grade me after. Ramsey, welcome. Do you want to introduce our guest?
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Paul. Appreciate it. Great to be back for another episode. So today we're joined by Bruno Caron from AM Best. And this is a really incredible opportunity for us and for our audience to be able to, one, actually find out about his career path, which has been pretty remarkable and has covered a lot of different areas. But two, to really get a sense for his perspective on, what the current state and future looks like for the life insurance industry, particularly in the annuity space. I was teasing him before the show that in this space, AM Best rules the roost more than any of the other rating agencies. So this is just a fantastic opportunity for us. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Bruno. Tell us a little bit about about yourself, your career path, how you ended up AM Best, and then we'll move on to the other stuff.
Oh, thank you, Paul and Ramsey. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for having me. Very happy to be here today. I'm an actuary. I started my career about 15 years ago. Lots of consulting at Towers Parent at the time. A lot of M&A appraisals on life and annuities. I then worked for New York Life for about a year, and then ventured out, started my own firm in order to bring to the market a longevity hedge solution for individuals. We weren't able to raise the appropriate funds to actually build a business out of it, but my partner there went back in his whole role basically as an equity analyst. So I joined him as an equity analyst covering the life insurance space, life and annuity insurance space from a stock perspective. And then I moved on to be a financial analyst, but in a different role as a credit rating analyst at AM Best. And I've been at AM Best for about 3.5 years now.
Yeah, listen, it's great, Bruno. It's great to have you here. And so sometimes I wish, Ramsey, when we had these pre-discussions, we could hit the record, quicker. We had some real interesting discussions, Bruno, about kind of your view of products, which I want to get into, and what exactly are we selling? Kind of an existential question, but I think one that's really worth covering. But first, maybe just talk us through. I just kind of play back what you've done. Now, wow, this is interesting. So you're an incredibly influential position, as Ramsey said, but you've got now some really interesting perspectives to bring. And maybe just from kind of what you said, okay, consultant, worked inside an insurance company, did your own startup, worked on the sell side for the business. What were sort of the unique experience? I mean, you've looked at the industry from like a number of different lenses. how did those all, how did it feel like kind of shifting, and what did you learn from each one of those that may have like given you a different way of looking at the industry today?
Well, the number one thing I've learned is that there's multiple ways to look at things. That's for sure. And I think that one of the most interesting part is to understand how insurance and investments are in some ways so connected, but in some ways so dislocated. And I think they're both extremely important, extremely viable. They're just things that are critical in our economies, and the way we think about the two is actually crucial, especially as it comes to retirement income planning.
So, yeah. All right. So as you've taken those journeys, like what do you, of all those various perspectives, which one do you find most valuable as you're looking at insurance companies today?
Oh, well, that's, I mean, my role right now as a credit analyst at AM Best is definitely a lens that gets you, a good sense of how the entire industry is operating. That's for sure. Starting your own company is also a very humble and learning experience. So getting into into various meetings and to various wrapping your head around various getting out of the comfort zone. Definitely a good experience, a good learning experience as well. So and the stock market is a complex environment. So that also brings a large set of challenges, and with all challenges, there's opportunities to learn. So very grateful for all of those opportunities, and the consulting world as well was extremely
well. Yeah, if there's I find if there's any industry where you apply the parable or analogy of put 5 people blindfolded and have them feel an elephant. What do they? How do they describe it? Right. I mean, I found the people in the investment world kind of think of the world as a fund and total rate of return. I'm running a mutual fund, and like, well, that's quite right, because we have something called insurance accounting, and you got to do asset liability matching. Not so complex, not so easy. You start to do a startup. I don't think you have most people don't have the appreciation of the time it takes, and for a company to actually capitalize, put business, turn a profit. I think we take for granted, companies like New York Life or other, companies of that caliber, just exactly what it really means to have been in business successfully for, over 100 plus years. So it's a real interesting perspective. Talk to us about what are we selling today? We sell FIAs, we sell MYGAs, we sell fixed annuities. How many people annuitize them? How many people actually turn on the lifetime income features?
Well, we all know that the annuitization rate on those products has been historically very low. If I take a step back, even before I started my career as an actuarial student, the first thing you'll learn is to calculate an annuity, and an annuity is basically a stream of payment. So the closest thing, the purest thing from an annuity perspective is a mortgage. Like, here's your stream of payment, here's your interest rates, here's your interest rate, calculate the interest portion on your 12th payment. So these were the type of problems that you kind of solve when you're an actuarial student. And then you move on in your degree to a life annuity. And what is a life annuity? Well, it's a stream of payment for the rest of your life. In practice, that's a defined benefit pension plan. That is a SPIA. That is actually the stream of payment an insurance company that offers term insurance will get in return for the potential face amount if a person passes away. So it's basically a stream of payment for life. And, if you go back at the very start of my career, I started at Towers Parent at the time, changed a few times in the meantime. But that entire discussion of, defined benefit, defined contribution was well on its way. And that was 15 years ago. And I was not part of the defined benefit pension practice. I was on the life insurance consulting. And in my mind, in my very young actuarial mind, that was not an issue, because there are products out there. Defined benefit plans are going away, but you have SPIAs. So, the people are not going to have pensions, but they're going to buy SPIAs. That's not what happened. We all know that defined benefit plans, decreased in use significantly, but SPIA sales have not increased. And that is a big puzzle at this time when, all the demographics are pointing to a demand for SPIA and a demand for lifetime income, given that huge unknown of living. Like, people don't know how long they're going to live. It's, there's a cost associated with living. And is your retirement going to last 6 months, 40 years? You don't know. You simply don't know. And lifetime income helps you to mitigate that, not just that risk, but it also helps you to plan and to be comfortable with the rest of your investment.
So one of the things you did as we were talking about this ahead of time is you phrased that experience in a very interesting way. You really sort of articulated everything you just said in terms of bequest. So Tell us a little bit about that. I thought that was a very interesting way to look at things. Sure.
Well, I think bequest is one of those aspects that is just not discussed. People think about bequest as, 4 guys, sitting on a yacht and drinking scotch with their cigars and complaining about taxes. And that's kind of the mental picture I have about people and talking about bequest. But the reality is that bequest is a significant portion and significant part of retirement planning and thinking. So if we take 3 different examples, if you say, a person retires, today, and let's say they go to their retirement party, they get, there's a wide variety of possible outcomes, but that person can get hit by a bus and just, leave its pile of money to their kids. Most people leave their money to their kids. It could be a charity, but usually to their kids. So that person that's 65 or 70 years old can get out of his retirement party, get hit by a bus, and leave his entire pile of money to their kids. And that same person can live up to, a little longer than its life expectancy, and potentially leaving absolutely nothing to their kids. And that same person can live way after their life expectancy, and essentially leaving negative bequest, which is commonly known as longevity risk. So if you think about the kid's perspective, if you're, you're 70 years old, your kids are potentially in their 30s or 40s, why would you want to leave a significant pot of money to your kids while they're in their prime earning years? Leave them nothing if, 25, 30 years, 25 years later, when they start their own retirement. Or scenario number 3, the negative bequest, leave them with a liability while they are in their retirement themselves. So there's like this from a kid's perspective, people don't necessarily see themselves as as a liability to their kids because they have that pile of money. But thinking 25, 30, 35 years down the road, different story. So, a lot of people will get life insurance because they've heard people dying at very young ages and say, well, if that happens to me, I need to be covered. And that could happen like tomorrow. Lifetime income, longevity risk is a very, very long-term very long-term dilemma and dynamic, but it doesn't mean it's not a threat.
No, I think that's a really interesting way of working it. But you know what? I like that idea. But you know, the rates are so low. I'm going to wait till they go up, till I buy another one. Is that a good idea?
Well, arguably, I think that lifetime income is the only financial vehicle out there that actually provides income. And even if rates are at zero, that's the vehicle itself will provide, you know, return of principal and mortality credit. Now, if you look at it solely from, you know, you have to understand that there's a risk pooling aspect of it. There's a guarantee, you know, part of that. And you have to understand that if you die early, you will, quote, quote, lose on your return on investment from the financial vehicle. But if you live very long, you'll most likely gain significantly from it. And if you live up to your life expectancy, you'll probably break even if you compare that to you know, a similar fixed income instrument of similar credit quality. So it's a trade-off that people are not necessarily used to see, but it's very fair. And return on investment is not necessarily the only metric that people should look at. I mean, think about car insurance. I mean, if you buy car insurance at the beginning of the year and you don't have any accident at the end of the year, do you look back at your car insurance policy and think about your return on investment? Well, it's negative 100%. You paid a premium, you got nothing. Your return on investment is negative 100%. If you have a car accident, your return on investment can be at, you know, 1,000%. Are you happy with that? No, you crashed your car. So return on investment is not the sole metric. I'm not saying it should not be think of, but it's not the sole metric people should think about. There's a risk pooling element. There's an unknown that's out there, and even at the end of the year, should you regret your purchase of car insurance because you didn't have a car accident? No, you didn't know that at the beginning of the year. So.
No, well, in the words of Joe Jordan, one of our other guests, you know, Bruno, when are you going to die, and how long are you planning to stay dead? Right? There's not a lot. You got not a lot of time hopefully, there's not a lot of time for you to feel too remorseful about the decision to buy that type of protection. So Ramsey, you've been a big advocate of SPIAs, DIAs. I mean, what questions would you have, or application would you have there?
Yeah, so I think that there are a number of things. So I'm going to start with the question of low interest rates. So yeah, you have this conversation all the time with consumers, and they say, well, interest rates are low. And sometimes they say, well, I'm going to go buy munis or do something else. I said, well, those rates are low too. CD rates are low. Everything is low. So there's really no answer there unless you go up the risk spectrum. So people buy riskier bonds, or they buy dividend paying stocks, which is not the same. That's buying a stock, and people are now feeling the pain of what that means. But I sometimes think that we as an industry have missed out on this opportunity to show what an annuity what a SPIA would pay when interest rates are zero or near zero. Like I haven't actually seen that. I haven't seen that analysis, but I would like to see that analysis. I think that would be very clear, because then people will know exactly what portion of the value is coming from mortality credits. And I know that obviously that changes relative to where interest rates are, et cetera, but like it is still, I think that would be one of the more valuable illustrations possible. Have you done anything like that? Is that something that you think would be worth doing, Bruno?
Well, first, I couldn't agree more. I think there's an opportunity there, and you know, for lifetime income, and that goes right exactly to what you just said, Ramsey. And you know, if you're saying like, well, interest rates are too low, I'm not going to buy a SPIA. Well, what else are you going to do? You're going to just take more risk, and now you're not comparing apples to apples. You're having a completely different risk reward trade-off. And the other thing is, I mean, I think that if you say that you don't buy a SPIA based on rates, I mean that's literally taking a bet that interest rates will increase in the future. and that you'll be able to buy a SPIA at a better rate, which is not impossible, but I mean, I can't predict that. That's number one. Number two, I mean, that's the same dilemma that people and institutions face when they buy long-term bonds. I mean, if rates go up, their investment, the value of their investment go down. Well, I mean, there is a 20, 30-year-old bond market out there. It exists, and just saying that this market should not exist, I think is not a good way to think about things. So I couldn't agree more with you. There's a great opportunity out there to sell SPIAs and lifetime income on the basis that they provide income. And yes, that's, if you die earlier, you will lose from a return on investment perspective. There's no question there. But it's gonna make it a while for.
Well, the key thing is this issue of sort of realigning like timing. So that we had this expression we used to use in my old firm a lot, which is wrong way risk. And wrong way risk is risk that happens at the worst possible time. Right. So what you've highlighted there is that if you don't put your money in an annuity, you put in something else, and you die young, you'll be able to give all that money to your kids, but it may be when they need it least. And then at the other extreme, when you need it most, and when they also need their own money most, an annuity actually is giving you a payout where you otherwise wouldn't get a payout. So it actually realigns things right way, right? That when you need that protection the most, you get it, right? And that's the critical thing. So, but I do want to shift gears here, because you have this great macro view of the industry, and want to get a sense for what do we see the future holds here, for the industry. So interest rates are low, and life insurance industry, sort of the fuel of the life insurance industry is in fact yield. So what are you looking for from carriers in coming years? And what do you want them to do to adapt to this new environment? What do you want to see?
Well, first I got to start by saying that I couldn't agree more with your expression that I already forgot. The wrong risk or
wrong way risk.
Wrong way of risk.
Wrong way risk. Right way risk. Yeah.
Right way of risk. Wrong way of risk. I think that describes the situation very well, and I think that's the absolute good way to think about it. In terms of what I want to see, from a credit analyst, we're not in a position to dictate and say like, oh, we want to see this, we want to see that. We don't do that.
Okay, analyze. Rephrase it. You're not telling people what to do, but they're going to do what they're going to do, and you see 4 different carriers do something, right? And then
yes,
what are the things that are going to make you want to give them an extra plus on that
Okay, we're taking notes now. Everybody take notes.
Sorry
to put you on the spot, Bruno, but this doesn't happen every day.
Fair enough. But the quick answer is more capital. That's always a good answer from a credit analyst standpoint. Our methodology, the number one thing that we look at is a balance sheet, and how much capital, the adequacy of the reserve, the quality of the portfolio. So from a credit standpoint, obviously the capital and balance sheet strength is the number one thing we look at. We separate our ratings into what we call building blocks, and the number one building block is the balance sheet strength. The second one is operating performance, so that a company that can generate profits and earnings will most likely have a balance sheet that will continue to be strong, or at least go in the right direction. The third aspect we look at is business profile. And that includes, marketing, distribution, product risk, regulation, and more of the qualitative aspect of the business. And the fourth building block is enterprise risk management. So in terms of, what we see, what we look at, it's definitely an interesting dynamic for fixed deferred annuity players. So that's definitely a unique dynamic. And then there are, SPIA players, pension risk transfer players, which are also play in that space as well. So there's, it's an overall evaluation, and we look at virtually everything
Sure.
that a company, that a company does and offer. And
so it's not just about balance sheet, it's about sort of sustainability, right? So
correct.
you 4 different areas: marketing, distribution, product diversification. So it's very holistic, which is fascinating.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But I don't want to, just to push a little harder on sort of like your perspective of the industry's health as a whole. I back when I first sort of got into the insurance industry, one of the companies I was working at was, oh boy, this is toxic now, right? Long-term care. Everybody needed it. Doesn't sound like annuities. They all need it. They want it. They buy the product. What's the pricing dependent on? Well, utilization, lapse rates. Oh, interest rates. Interest rates at that point were 8%. People were complaining about them, right? And you all kind of know the end of that movie. It was pretty ugly, and still, people who paid policies are working through this process. Bruno, what's your perspective on the overall health of the industry? Now, I would say some of these new product designs like FIAs are actually, I would say, I'd argue, give carriers more flexibility. I almost, when I talk to analysts before, I've sort of said, think of these FIAs as almost like, it's like, Will's not here. And by the way, this is not how to market a product at all, but say an FIA is kind of like the annuity equivalent of a whole life product, where we've got a little more flexibility, caps, participation rates, where we can manage our way through there. But at some point, we're still a spread business, and we either take the rates down, or what you don't want to see us do is, we're going to take higher credit risk. So how's the industry doing? What's your 2-year, 3-year, 4-year outlook for the business?
Well, lots of material here. First, AMS changed its outlook from stable to negative on the entire industry. That was done mid-March, when this entire coronavirus really emerged, especially here in the U.S. And that was mostly geared towards economic uncertainty, and there's just a lot of unknowns there. At the same time, I mean, we still believe that the industry is well capitalized. So there's a high level of capital. If you look at it from absolute capital, from risk adjusted capital, and you have the regulatory metrics. We have our own capital metric. It's called the BCAR. So we do look at that, and and even in very kind of quote good times, we, as a rating agency, as a balance sheet strength perspective, we look for that worst case scenario. So that's all captured in our ongoing methodology and analysis.
Can I ask one question about that? Like,
yes.
Is the industry better capitalized during this crisis than it was during the last crisis, in your view?
I wish I had a co.
All right. You can move on. You can move on. I mean, my hypothesis is the answer is yes, but I think it's my sense is yes.
To be frank, Ramsey, you probably have a much better sense and a much better view than I would. And during the last crisis, I mean, I was at the very beginning of my career.
Okay.
It actually generated a lot of mandates, given the high M&A activity. So I was in the forefront of looking at some of those particular blocks, but it was very pointed to certain certain carriers and So this is, this is very different. And I do believe, we do believe that the industry continues to be well capitalized, but of course there's many unknowns that remain to be seen. Especially, I mean, a lot of the companies have on their balance sheets some of the high risk exposure on either on their bonds, on their commercial mortgage loans. So there's there's a lot of unknown out there. And Paul, to go back to your point earlier, long-term care is another very interesting aspect. The way we try to view it, the way we try to frame it, is to actually look at obviously we look at it from many angles, but the way we try to frame it is the looking at the number of assumptions that go into a particular product and what makes it risky. And I think you framed it really well earlier, saying that you need, like, well, you're betting on utilization rates, lapse rates, interest rates, and the list goes on for long-term care. And that contrasts with other products that are driven mainly by, either mortality, interest rates, sometimes lapses, but you have maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 key assumptions. Like for long-term care, there's just a long list of assumptions. And to your point, I mean, that's we know where interest rates went. We know where the utilization went. We know where the lapse where rates went. So you kind of have the perfect storm there for that particular line of business. I'll pause there. I know there's a lot of comments, lots of
my hypothesis, Ramsey, is I think the products we're selling today. Let me flip it the other way. When you say how well capitalized, right? That's a tough one because, well, what are the liabilities? The assets.
Absolutely.
Right. That's the hard part here. And I think, from my perspective, I think the good news of sort of the shift from variable to fixed is we got a little more flexibility as care. Bruno, you tell me if you think it's wrong. With the VA block, I don't think people really fully appreciate the canning treatment when the markets went down, how much the product was literally hinging on market performance, where, the FIA it's related to, but at the end of the day, we're in the bond space now. So I think, we can manage our in-force better. My view, Bruno, tell me if you think I'm wrong. I think we got the tools with the FIA product blocks to manage through this crisis better than we did with sort of the pure VA. Is that, you think am I off base in terms of your assessment?
Oh, no, I wouldn't say you're off base. I mean, it's definitely, I mean, there are definitely some unknowns there in terms of variable annuity liabilities. So it is, again, something that we look at from all the potential lenses that we can look at. This particular environment has definitely put those hedging programs to test. And so from an equity standpoint, we'll see like kind of the real results of those hedging programs, the DRM programs that are out there. And then there's, again, that never-ending looming question of interest rates.
Exactly, because we may have a perfect product for managing through it, but when spreads go to a certain point, I don't care what the design is, it's a tough time.
Absolutely. So it's it's an interesting environment to say the least.
Yeah. Well, Ramsey, what other any questions? We're kind of at the top of our time.
Oh, all right. So I was just going to say, the risk generated by variable annuities, was pretty much what drove my business at my prior employer for many, many years. It was very significant. And then, the risk that was generated by FIAs was more predictable and was generally fully hedged. So you had the situation where, with the VAs, you did sort of a best efforts hedge. And the world could go in a lot of different ways. With FIAs, you could more or less match the risk, the equity risk, with a pretty equivalent equity hedge from the get-go. So that's why I was saying earlier, I think things should be less risky now. So hopefully there's more capital too, but hopefully the product books are a lot less risky than they were. So no, that's all I had for now. I mean, I really just appreciate your time, Bruno, and it's glad that you and folks like you are taking a look at the industry and helping guide the industry on the best ways to sort of to be evaluated and manage risk on a going forward basis. So I mean, the ratings that you put on the companies determine cost of funds, they determine yields, they determine all sorts of things. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks, Bruno. Thank you for coming. Hopefully, we'd love to have you come back another few months, and let's see see where we were right, Ramsey, and where we were wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I really want to thank you guys, for this for this conversation. It was, I think it was great. It was very productive, very stimulating on both ends. So I certainly appreciate it.
And Bruno, of course, if people have questions, what's the best way to reach you? And by the way, are you writing a book? Is that what I heard?
Yes, that you're absolutely right. And that we'll discuss all of these great things that we discussed today. So stay tuned.
Excellent.
Great.
All right.
Bruno.
Hey, thank you. Thanks. Hey, thanks for listening to another episode of That Annuity Show. Be sure to like us, tell your friends. If you don't like us, well, if you don't like us, send us back, call us. You know where to find Rams and me. So have a great week, and we'll tune in again next week for another great episode.
Hi, this is Ramsey Smith, co-host of That Annuity Show and founder of Alex.fyi. I want to talk a little bit about AgeUp. They are our first sponsor here on That Annuity Show, and they have a very unique and innovative product. As most of us know, people are living longer than ever before. Unfortunately, fewer and fewer can afford it. With small dollar payments now, AgeUp provides guaranteed monthly income for life, beginning at the selected target payout age between 91 and 100 years old. Head to ageup.com, that's age-up.com/thatannuityshow to get started and see how AgeUp can help you guarantee supplemental income for yourself or a loved one living past 90.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend us on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information at thatannuityshow.com.